Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Beyond the Baseboards. My name is Erik Miller, and I'm a mortgage and finance expert and real estate enthusiast. My hope is that with this podcast-style show that you'll have fun, learn some, and get something out of it that can make a difference for you. I know that's a tall order, but investing and knowing about real estate is more than the sticks and bricks. It's about your life, your home, and your future. Wow, that was a great intro. Let me just try to reach back and give myself a little pat. Woo, look at this, is great. What's that, this shoulder? Very tight jacket, thank you, COVID. Anyway, the star of the show today is somebody truly special. You know how some people talk about backpacking around the world, trying to make the world a better place? Well, Daniel Rangel actually did it. He's a super smart, out-of-the-box thinker and a fabulous real estate agent in Los Angeles. Daniel's been published in newspapers across America and the continent. He's made television appearances. He's been a guest speaker at several universities, and he's given 2 TED Talks. What he's doing on Beyond the Baseboards, I have no idea. Anyway, he has a great real estate YouTube channel, which you can find in the description below. And I'm serious, watch his stuff. It's really funny. Even if you're remotely interested in the area, you have to check it out. I would never steer you wrong. You know, everyone has different tastes, but his stuff is fire. Speaking of which, this intro also has been pretty good, right? I know. Never has a real estate podcast had better information, guest stars, Easter eggs, and more intros than Beyond the Baseboards. If you like this video, please comment, drop a like, subscribe, ring the bell, blah, blah, blah. Let's introduce Daniel Rangel.
So the current median price in California is around $800,000, right? Around $800,000. And people are like, those numbers are crazy. They're unprecedented. Which one I would hope they would be unprecedented. That means things are growing, right? So there's that aspect. Now, $800,000 California median price. If we go back 15 years to 2007, during the craziness of 2007, the median price at that time, it hit a height of $590,000.
Wow.
To which people are like, yeah, that makes sense, Daniel. See, we're way past that. We're now in a bubble and the market is going to crash. But once you account for inflation, using the consumer price index, that $590,000 property in today's money actually costs $770,000.
So we're right where we were.
a $20,000 difference from like 15 years ago.
So we're right where we were before, right?
We're almost right where we were 15 years ago. But wait, it gets crazier. In 2007, the interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage was about 6%. We're currently at a 3%. So once you account for inflation, interest rates, economic growth, and a bunch of other factors, we're not even at the level that we were 15 years ago. That's insane. So I ran some numbers the other day, and it's interesting. So if you bought this $590,000 property 15, 14 years ago, whatever the exact number might be, your total interest cost over the span of the loan, the total amount you would have paid would have been about $550,000 in interest rate. In interest costs, accounting for that 6% interest, 590. Now, if you were to buy a house today, a medium price house at 800,000, much more, but with a lower interest rate, half at 3%, your total interest rate cost would be $330,000.
Wow.
Over $200,000 less in interest cost than if you would have bought the cheaper house like 15 years ago. And once you add the purchase price plus the total interest cost, it would have cost you $5,000 more to buy a property 15 years ago than it would cost you today.
And your point is, if you look at prices 15 years ago, everybody says, "Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's normal. What we have now is crazy." But if you look at all the facts, what you're saying is that actually it was worse then than it is now.
Oh, so much more. And I'm not saying the market's not going to crash. I'm not saying property values are not going to go down. I'm not saying California, market is not going to go, in the other direction.
Is that that's the sound of falling?
That's exactly.
I prefer but you're like that. That's great. Everybody,
I don't know. That's just how I envisioned
falling
it.
sounds. No, yeah, you're the star here. So go ahead, keep going.
Sorry.
Oh, no apology necessary. I'm just enjoying
okay. So yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but I think if we let ourselves go for what the media is feeding as far as where prices are, or what every YouTube channel out there is promoting, we're going to have a very miscued representation of where things actually are. And I think the other point here is to communicate to whoever's watching and considering buying a house, California, Los Angeles, or anywhere in the country. Yes, prices are important, but don't let go of this small little thing called the interest rate, because that could end up costing a lot more than what you think the price might end up costing you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting in the analysis that we just did, a 3% difference made over a $200,000 cost difference. And I think for people, sometimes they focus on the purchase price and they look at a $200,000 price difference. They're like, whoa, but they forget about this little itsy bit. Oh, it's just a cute little number 3. It's a 3%, or it's just a 3% difference. What kind of impact could this thing actually have? Bam! Turns out $200,000 difference. So it's
Huge
really
impact.
important to consider those two factors, I think. And as far as the market crashing, like, do you know? I don't know. You know when
Nobody
it's gonna
knows.
crash? No.
It doesn't matter how experienced you are, what you've been through. Nobody knows. You can get feelings, right? People have thoughts about, maybe I feel like this or it seems like that. But I think, to your point, that's often skewed by what your viewpoint is, right? Like if you don't like California and you're kind of inclined to, think poorly of what's happening in the housing market there, then you see what's going on and you go, oh, obviously it's going to get way worse, right? Because that's kind of the magic of statistics, is that they can kind of be whatever it is you want them to be, even with the same numerical outcomes.
A lot of people are like, what's the minimum down payment requirement? I'm like, what? No, what's your minimum down payment requirement? How much money do you need to give down to make those payments affordable, to have those payments be sustainable? So if, like you said, if the market does crash, worst case scenario, can you rent that property out and have the rent cover the mortgage?
Yeah. And if you can't, you shouldn't buy.
You shouldn't. Yeah.
No. I mean, and the other thing too is,
unless you have a lot of reserves, which is the other recommendation.
But then you can afford it. Then you can afford it. And so you're okay to buy in that case. But I mean, this isn't like just specific to real estate. When you think about it, like you'd never just like throw some stuff in a car and then take off and drive someplace without having a plan of sustainability to get where you ultimately want to go. Right. You don't want to just
100%.
drive to a place with no gas stations and like, oh, I guess I'm out of gas now. I got to get it's ludicrous.
Maybe they'll build one along the way.
Yeah. You got to build a gas station along. I'm sure it'll work out fine. Like, you gotta understand before you begin your journey, whether that's home ownership or whatever, you got to understand what you're trying to do in the end, and then build your pathway along the entire distance of the journey. And if you can do that, well, then go for it. But if you can't do that, then think about it. Make sure that you're making a smart decision.
So one that I would say, living within your means, that has been incredible for me. One, when I was in Latin America or the US or traveling, I lived off of a backpack. I lived a very humble Spartan life. I spent 12 days on a cargo ship floating up the Amazon River, eating rice and chicken every day, sleeping on an open deck on a hammock. And despite this, for some, that would be like a horrible tragedy to be like, oh God, what lows have you hit? To me, I'm like, this is amazing. So I lived this very simple life, but yet we talked about that it was motivated by depression, or in depression, I found the courage to actually do this. This very Spartan life, and it was the happiest experience of my life.
Wow.
The happiest experience of my life. And in that came this realization, a lot of the things that I thought I needed, I don't. And sometimes when you're living a life that you're passionate about, that you like, you forget about money and the crap that you need to buy or want to buy. And I think that's incredibly powerful for me, or it has helped me tremendously in real estate. I'm not the most successful agent in the world. I'm not a multimillionaire, and I will not know. But you don't need to be that to live comfortably. Sometimes you can't control how much money you make or if that escrow closes, but you can control whether you buy those $500 shoes. That you do have control over. So for me, this living within your means has helped me tremendously. One, I get more satisfaction than the satisfaction that I would get from a Lamborghini, or the satisfaction that I would get from $600 shoes. I get more satisfaction from being able to cancel a transaction because it's in my client's interest. That feels so much better. And not have to worry about, ooh, I got to close this escrow because I got to make my $1,000 car payment next month. That puts you in a horrible position. There's a saying that the best negotiator is the one who's willing to walk away. When you're thousands of dollars in debt, it's very difficult to walk away. It's very difficult to do a good job negotiating on behalf of your clients when you're put in this corner where, oh, next month's mortgage payment is due and I don't know how I'm going to make it. I need to close this escrow. So I get more satisfaction from that. And I think it also helps out in the sense of, I don't know if you read the book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
No.
He has this theory. It's called the theory of paradoxical intention. The more you intend to acquire something, the least likely it happens. And I'm not sure if I just made this example, but imagine a 2x4 being put on the floor. It's like about this thick. Now I'm like, Erik, just balance yourself, walk back and forth on this 2x4. And you're like, piece of cake. You'll be dancing straight back and forth. God forbid you might be able to do a backflip on the thing, right?
I'm known to do occasional backflips.
Yeah. Now elevate that 2x4 4 stories in the air. You are probably more likely to fall despite it being that same 2x4, because now the only thing you're concerned about is that fall. And to connect it with living within your means, if you're on a listing presentation, if you're on a buyer's presentation, and you don't have to worry about next month's rent, that 2x4 is on the floor. When you have to worry about next month's rent because you got an apartment or a house that's a lot more expensive that you should have gotten, or because you got a car that was way beyond your means, but you got to fake it until you make it attitude, you've just raised that 2x4 5 stories in the air. The one thing you're thinking about is not falling. And that's probably what's gonna happen.
So how do you wind it down? I mean, how do you, if you know,
Stop
for everybody
spending so much money.
for everybody
People
that's
just-
still coiled up in it, what do you think
You don't
they can
have
do?
you don't have to. One is realizing or questioning, like, do I really need this? And I'm not saying like go out there and make a lot of money. Like this can apply to someone who doesn't make a lot of money. Just control your expenses. And I think it becomes easier when you are doing something that you enjoy and that you love. You don't need to buying stuff becomes a distraction. I sometimes I s- Going to shop for clothes is sometimes a burden. Like, oh my God, I have to like go out there and go away from the things that I like to do and buy this. Like, no. So having these interests, these passions, you eventually, it seems like you come to realize that you forget about it. When I was doing my trip in Latin America, I just forgot about stuff. Like, oh shit, I don't need that Mercedes. Like doesn't do anything. It's funny, the buses in Latin America, the public transportation, they're actually they're Mercedes brand, but they're like super beat up. So I would still tell people like, yeah, I'm over here rolling in my Mercedes, but it was public transportation.
Me and my 400 homies
yeah.
and their chickens.
Yeah. So I think it's a very, you're doing more of a favor for your clients by living within your means. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong against having a mansion and a Mercedes. Plenty of people should have it. They can afford it. It represents a small little dent in their financial position. So I'm not going against that. I just think it brings a wealth of value to your life and to your clients to watch your finances, to not spend money that one you don't have. I think it's just it becomes a distraction for buyer presentations, seller presentations, even for you. I pointed out that I get a lot of satisfaction from being able to cancel a client's transaction because it's not in their interest. There's also the satisfaction that comes with, it's okay, I don't need to work with you. Here's another realtor that I can recommend. They love putting up with crap because you also have to.
Okay.
Because I think you also have to have respect for yourself.
Yeah.
When a client respects me, I go way overboard to satisfy, their interest. There comes a point where, yeah, if someone's disrespectful, you got to love yourself before you can love other people, and you got to respect yourself too. If there's a client that's being really rude or mean, living within your means, not spending a shit ton of money on random stuff. I'll say this, it's going to bring you more satisfaction to tell a client who's mean to you and who's making you live this horrible experience. It's going to bring you more satisfaction to say, it's okay, I don't need to work with you, than the satisfaction that could possibly come from, that crazily expensive car, right? I guarantee you.